Well, moving on, anti-migrant protests have flared again in the United Kingdom. Demonstrators gathered outside a hotel in Eping, east of London, that is housing asylum seekers. Now, this latest protest follows a series of confrontations, most recently in Liverpool, where large numbers of anti-immigration protesters and counter-protesters faced off in the city when police vans. Last Thursday, there were just 6 of those police carriers here. Now, there were 6 before it keeps kicking off, and the anger is all too familiar. It started in Eping after a 38-year-old Ethiopian man was charged with sexual assault. Receiving more information today, we're told that he was receiving updates on the case of this 24-year-old Algerian. You'll go to the police station now. OK, so you're under arrest. This is Hades Kabatu being taken into police custody within hour. Let's get more on what is without doubt today's biggest story by a country mile. And it's turning in a turning point in the country's migrant crisis. And it's, of course, asylum seekers face being kicked out of the Bell Hotel in Epping, perhaps within 14 days after the local council won a temporary and historic High Court injunction blocking migrants. Laughter. Applause. I was preparing for this. I think that's a flash. That's a bag. Nice. Music colleagues and friends, 10 years ago the world came together in Paris, united in our determination to tackle the climate crisis, a consensus that was based on science that is unequivocal, and this unity. Off you go then, off you go. What's wrong with being a citizen journalist? Can I not be a citizen journalist? Be where I like. I'm in public, mate. The cameras with a screwdriver. At least one of the blows was so violent that it penetrated her brain. Ryan died 3 days later, surrounded by her family in hospital, leaving quiet. So I'm surprised the honourable gentleman didn't hear me when I said that. Of course, I apologise and I'm sorry for the anxiety caused. But look, let me just remind him centre, with police forced to step in to keep the single protester even turned up. Lots of people here present from being housed there. Let's cross knife. Let's direct to Eping and speak to the shows. We are in court. It was confirmed that Hid recently arrived on a small boat. It started quietly, sir, but tonight Epping is on fire, not with flames, but with anger. Crowds are filling the streets, shouting, waving flags and demanding answers, going out, right? What began as a local dispute over one hotel has exploded into a full-scale crisis, shaking the whole of Essex. Over 150,000 people are now involved, marching, protesting and calling for change. The government says it's under control, but the scenes on the ground tell a very different story. Stay tuned, because what's happening right now in Eping could mark one of the biggest social eruptions the UK has seen in years. Eping, a quiet market town in Essex, has suddenly become the centre of nationwide attention. The tension began when several local hotels were converted into temporary housing for newly arrived migrants. Local residents say they weren't informed properly, and soon frustration turned into fear and fear into anger. Within hours, social media posts and live videos from the town started spreading like wildfire. By evening, hundreds had gathered outside one of the hotels, demanding answers from local authorities. What started a small protest into a sea of people filling the streets with chants of "We want answers" and "Epic deserves to be heard." Many carried signs calling for fair treatment, transparency and safety, not just for themselves, but also for the migrants caught in the middle of this chaos. Witnesses described the atmosphere as tense but emotional. Some say they saw families with children holding banners, while others reported confrontations between police and angry residents. Shops closed early, roads were blocked, and the normally peaceful town centre turned into a scene of confusion. Local, where I spent 7 years of my life at school, into the night. At first, the local council downplayed the situation, calling it a temporary disturbance. But as news spread beyond Epic, I'm here because I'm scared that our country is going. We're being invaded. There's more towns across Essex began to react. In Chelmsford, Colchester and Harlow, similar gatherings formed, all sparked by the same issue, a growing sense that people are being left out of decisions that deeply affect their communities. The migrant hotel programme was meant to be a short-term solution to help new arrivals seeking asylum, but to many residents, it feels like a decision made without consultation. Critics claim the government rushed the process, while supporters argue it's necessary humanitarian aid. Both sides agree on one thing: the system is overwhelmed. By nightfall, reports estimated over 150,000 people, and why it's all. So, as you know, there has been many protests outside of the Bell Hotel where a migrant was arrested. The crowd's message was clear. The people want answers, transparency and safety. Whether peaceful or passionate, the movement is spreading. And the government now faces a storm it can't easily ignore, as darkness even for the res. The narrow streets, once calm and quiet, were now packed shoulder to shoulder with people carrying flags, signs and camera phones. The crowd stretched for blocks from the high street all the way to the old market square. Drone footage shows a sea of people moving together, voices rising in unison, echoing through the town like a wave. Police lines were set up early, but as the crowd grew, officers struggled to keep roads open. Boo open. Blue lights flashed across shop windows as sirens cut through the noise. Protesters shouted slogans demanding government accountability and protection for their communities. Some held candles, others banged pots or blew whistles. A strange mix of anger and desperation, hope and defiance outside one of the main hotels. Tensions were at their highest. Reports say a small group tried to push through police barriers, shouting that they wanted to see who's inside. Officers quickly stepped in, forming a human wall to block entry. And for a moment, chaos erupted, shouting, shoving, and the sharp sound of glass breaking somewhere in the distance. But within minutes, calm voices in the crowd began calling for peace. "Stay peaceful," someone shouted through a megaphone. "This is about being heard, not about violence." Across the road, a different scene unfolded. Dozens of local residents stood quietly holding signs that read, "Help the migrants. Help our town." They said the real problem wasn't the people inside the hotels. It was the lack of planning and communication from the government. Their voices were calm but determined, asking for balance and compassion. Reporters on the ground described the atmosphere as charged but complex. Not everyone in the crowd was angry. Many were simply scared or confused. One shop owner told local media, "We're not against anyone. We just don't know what's going on. We deserve to know what happens in our town." By late evening, footage showed hundreds sitting down in the streets, refusing to move until they got a response from officials. Police began rerouting traffic as ambulances and patrol cars lined up nearby. Helicopters hovered above Eping, their searchlights cutting across the night sky. Meanwhile, social media was exploding with live videos and photos. Hashtags like #EpingProtest, #Essex Rising, and #MigrantHotelCrisis trended across the UK within hours. Viewers from Manchester, Birmingham, and even London started sharing solidarity messages or voiced in concern. The situation had clearly gone beyond local unrest. It was now a national story. Through it all, one message kept echoing across the crowds. We need answers. Whether shouted through megaphones or whispered in interviews, the sentiment was the same. Frustration with silence from those in power. As the protests spread through Essex, the government could no longer stay silent. By early morning, statements began to appear from both local and national officials, each one trying to calm the situation while facing growing criticism from every side. The Home Office released a short message on social media calling for calm and understanding. It read, "We are aware of the demonstrations across Essex regarding migrant accommodation. The safety of all residents, both local and migrant, remains our top priority." But that message only fueled more debate. Many people commented beneath the post, accusing the government of ignoring the community's concerns for too long. Later, the Essex police chief, standing in front of flashing blue lights, gave a live briefing. He confirmed multiple gatherings across the county, but emphasised that most remained peaceful. "We understand the emotion behind these events," He said, "Our officers are here to protect everyone involved, and we urge the public to express themselves safely and lawfully." His tone was firm, but his eyes told a story of exhaustion. Long nights, tense standoffs and growing uncertainty. Meanwhile, local council members in Eping were caught between two fires, the government's directives and the people's frustration. One councillor admitted that communication could have been better, adding that they received short notice about the hotels being repurposed. Another councillor warned that Bunch's anger could divide the community for years to come. In Westminster, the Prime Minister faced reporters who demanded to know why the migrant accommodation plan had been rolled out so suddenly. Standing outside Number 10, he defended the decision, calling it a necessary emergency response to the rising number of asylum seekers entering the UK. "We are doing what's required to manage an unprecedented situation," he said. But critics weren't convinced. Opposition leaders called the government's approach